Hi everybody, I'm back again, and thanks for those of you who watched my last post and all the kind, loving comments. They were really warmed my heart, so appreciate those of you who have watched that video and are curious and interested, excited for the information that I'll be sharing. So this morning I started going through the material that I want to begin sharing with you guys and realized I need to do a little bit more of an introduction to kind of lay the groundwork of where I was coming from and the kinds of things that I'll be covering in sharing this information. So that's what this will be about, and I'll try to make it short. So just to kind of make a recap or a nutshell of the main direction that I was being guided to explore and learn information and everything over the last year, because it's totally relevant to most of what this material is that I finally followed my guidance that had been prompting me for at least a year before that, if not longer, to subscribe to Gaia.com, which is, as most of you know, filled with a lot of great stuff. And the reason I subscribed to it is because I was really curious about some of the videos that I had seen about, with David Wilcock. And I still, I'd heard of him and knew of him, I think, for some time, and Corey Good, if you guys have watched any of that information. But I'd seen some introductory free videos that they'd produced and was very intrigued and just didn't get around to watching it. So I finally subscribed about a year ago, maybe a little bit more. And I'm like this about everything I do. Whatever I'm in the moment that I'm interested in exploring and learning about, I go all in and I spend a lot of time with it. So of course, there's so much material between the wisdom teachings and the, I can't remember the one that he does with Corey Good, what it's called, that between those two videos series, there's hundreds. I think currently now there's over 250 videos. And I really began watching those all the time, 2 or 3, 4, 5 a day. And I was completely absorbed in it because just a little bit of a background on me. My dad has a double master's in physics and math, and he was also a high school physics teacher, and he's a Pleiadian, he's from where I am. We're very close soulmates, and only he doesn't know that. Anyway, that thirst for information and knowledge and everything was really, I think, kind of bred into me from a child, because everything in life was a physics lesson to my dad. If we had a question about something, or we were driving along the road and, we heard a train go by and you hear the Doppler effect, then he's going to explain that. And often it would involve, him getting out a piece of paper and drawing, demonstrations and diagrams and everything. So I've always been really curious about things and of that nature. I've also always been really just extremely interested and strong desire to know our history, where we really came from, who we really are, other than what I grew up with, the Christian version from the Bible. And so, learning that real story, I'd begun to gather in bits and pieces already from a lot of different things I read. Some that I'll just mention here. Sal Rochelle, if you've heard of him, he has really good information that I think is a pretty good background story of kind of the history of the world and the involvement of other star beings in the formation of the world. And so watching Corey Good and David Wilcock, and then especially David Wilcock's wisdom teachings, where he goes into the scientific information that literally shows and proves that we're entering into this energy. They actually call it local fluff. It's interesting that that's what NASA calls this energy cloud that we're entering into. That's over 2,000 degrees Celsius, I think, in temperature. Our whole entire solar system is entering that, has been for a long time, and we're getting farther and farther into it. The only reason we're not literally baking in it is that the sun literally creates a shield around it that this energy flows by, but a lot of it, of course, is coming through. And David Wilcock basically has the theory that outlines how this causes ascension And he shows, you know, like the cycles and how this has happened before, and of course how it happens on other worlds and everything. And so I was completely fascinated by that, and it really formed a strong foundation for confidence in me, to say, okay, I'm getting the consciousness shift, and I understand things are changing, and that, you know, we're living in a really significant time, and we're going to be going through ascension. Our bodies will literally change at some point. And knowing that from a consciousness perspective, but then to actually see scientific information all the way down to the cellular level, and, you know, on a larger, grander scale, how it all, you know, connects, and then how, you know, it's really a literal thing. So I was really fascinated by that, and it formed a strong basis for me to, you know, feel like this is real. This is really going to happen, and this is, you know, there's scientific information about it. He also goes into a lot of history of world religions, and you know, from Zoroastrianism to Hinduism to Buddhism to, you know, of course, the biblical teachings. Everybody knew. Everybody talked about the shift. Everybody knew that it was an energetic flash from the sun, the Kali Yuga, the I can't even remember all the, you know, I won't go into it. So I just, you know, want you to know that's my background for, and my curiosity and my questioning as we're going into a lot of the things, you know, not only our particular mission as starseeds that we are, why we're here, but those of us on the divine beloved connection pathway, that we know, you know, that there's this significant other person, and what that means, why, you know, why did we volunteer to do this, who we really are, and why what we're doing really is the key critical component for creating this healing that's, you know, that is beginning to take place and will continue to take place on Earth, you know, before, during, and after the shift. Lost my train of thought there for a second. So back to David Wilcock, and then Corey Goode as well. Very fascinating stuff. You know, dove into that for about a good year of really spending a lot of time watching it. And in that also, David Wilcock references the Law of One. And I don't know if you guys have read it, heard of it, know about it or not, but he references it so often, and the quotes and things that he pulls from it were so good that I finally got around to reading it myself, and it's very, very amazing. So you can actually just go to thelawofone.org, I think it is, and read it, you know, begin reading it yourself if you're interested, but I'll just warn you that it's very deep, and there are times when, you know, I'm just reading through one page, and it would take me, David would say the same thing, like he would just, you know, keep reading it over and over again to try to grasp and understand what they're saying, because, like, their language and how they talk is a little different than, you know, how we normally process and think in language. And then they're trying to, you know, bring concepts that are so beyond our ability to even understand, because they're higher dimensional, not to mention the fact that we don't really even have language, words, ideas, and things to connect it to in the 3D reality that we live in, where so much of this information has been blocked from us. But still, you know, it probably took me, I think I spent about 2 months, a month and a half, reading through just the first book of the Law of One. I haven't begun to try to read additional material. I guess there's more. But in any case, that also had a huge impact on what I began to do with Lisa later. So I finished reading the Law of One in right about the time that she and I began channeling this way. And this is how it connects. One of the things I really struck me about the Law of One was that I was just like, here they had the opportunity where every time they would do a session, they could just ask questions, and any question they would ask would be answered. And unless sometimes they would say, well, this would break there's a certain, I don't remember what they term it, but something about that if they would give that information, then it would impede on certain people's ability to have complete free will, because anyway, so that there are certain things they couldn't answer, but almost everything they could answer. And so through that weaving of, you know, all of the questions, and then they would answer, and then the questions and they would answer, they end up portraying some just amazing amount of information and material that is so relevant for us right now. And then I was like, I want more. And it didn't really connect or sink into me at that time that I could use that same style of question and answer format with my higher self. Lisa and I had, like I mentioned in our last video, we'd already begun working together long ago with, me reading cards for her and her doing her kind of readings for me. We've actually done joint sessions where we work together with clients that way, and it's, really interesting and great. But in her style of reading, we'd never asked questions. We would just go in and see what they had to show. And so there was a time that, when we had our first session where I asked a few questions and got amazing answers. So the next session and this was back, I would say, either late August or early September of this year. And so after we did that one time, I was like, this is really good stuff. And in the meantime, where I'd come to in my personal journey, I'll just say, I feel like I went through my final major, huge pinnacle dark night of, we go through many dark nights of the soul, right? Several at least, big ones. And my last and final one was about April, May of this year. And things that culminated with that, really just, again, stripped it all down to, the only thing that you have left to stand on is absolute faith and trust. And this, the only thing that I could hold on to was just knowing on the deepest level that everything that is based in fear, or whatever the pain is that might come up, whatever that is, whether it's the fear, the pain, whatever it is, the lower vibration that comes up, the only thing that causes that is not trusting, believing, and knowing and looking at it from the perspective of this is an illusion. The law of one talks about what the law of one is, and that's they say there's only one truth, and the one and only truth is that we are all one, and all one with the infinite creator. So all of creation is one with the infinite creation, and anything that looks like separation is just some type of, they call it distortion, but they don't mean it in distortion in the way we would think of distortion being bad. It just means if there's only one truth, which is everything is one, then anything that looks like some kind of separation from oneness is just a different, it's kind of a distortion of that truth of oneness. But there's nothing wrong with that. We're experiencing that. We're experiencing separation on different levels. And as you know, that every dimension has, starting with the highest dimensions are the most closely united with the creator. And eventually, you go up higher than that and you have union of all things with the creator. And then every dimension down is a step down from oneness with the creator into more and more and more division until you get to the first dimension. And of course, here we are at the third dimension where there's a veil that blocks between us and this pure ability to know, all it is. And so we have, quite a very strong feeling of separation. So going through this kind of ultimate pinnacle, final night of the soul for me was the way I got through it. And what I hung on to was just this feeling of separation is just an illusion. And I held on to that through that time period. And then I, like I said in the last video, kind of let all of, the focus on the journey, I let it go, set it aside. I had a great summer doing what I was doing that helped me bring in money for the first time. I even said at one point, it's I can't believe I live in this beautiful town with this, lake, and I don't have a friend with a boat, and I just really want to have someone to spend the summer with and have fun this summer. And then a few days later, I was prompted to just go downtown on a Friday night, and within 3 minutes of going into one of my favorite hangouts, some guy comes up and sits next to me, and we started talking, and basically kind of had we carried on a friendship, quasi-relationship. It was, I won't go into it, but, it wasn't like you would normally think of a relationship, but it was, really great. Showed me a lot of things, and had fun. We were seeing each other for about a month in the summer, and he wasn't working, and my work only took me 2 or 3 hours of the day. So we both had a lot of free time, just had a lot of fun. He had a boat. He had lots of friends. In that experience, I definitely, had more things to learn about just surrendering to the moment and enjoying life. Then there were also things like when it's all over, it's like, okay, there was aspects of that's not what I want in my life. So, it was good. So I had a good summer and, less intense on the journey. And then that whole thing ended with him at the end of July. So August, right before the eclipse season, back at, kind of this, okay, I'm back on the journey and focusing on that again. And then that's when, Lisa and I started working together more intensely. So when she and I began working together, I had a question, because I was having a little bit of sadness. It wasn't really heavy, but I was having a little bit of sadness of, just the separation. It's the stuff we've always gone through. And so I said, I want to do a session where we go in and we talk to my higher self and, ask some questions and see what comes through regarding, what they can do to offer help with, because I don't want to feel sad. And I mostly didn't, it wasn't like really, not like, the bad moments. And so we go in, and this was the second time. So, I'd already had one session where we'd asked 2 or 3 questions. And then this time we go in and with the intention of asking a lot more questions. But before we could ask questions, she showed us something. And I'm not going to go into what it is because it's too personal. But at first, when she showed it to us in a mime, she did 3 actions like a charade. And Lisa was saying, I don't get what she's saying, but she says, you'll understand it. And everything that came out around that whole thing, like, it blew me away. I didn't get the key part of the mime or the charade that she said I would get. I didn't get it till 3 days later. But the other part that she presented literally blew me away. It was so out of nowhere, so unbelievable, but it corresponded with dreams that I had had 3 years ago about me and my divine beloved, and it was really amazing. The key, and this is why I'm telling this, is because the key that she showed in the little charade was something that it suddenly clicked to me 3 days later, and it was something so personal that only I know, something I've never said to anybody else ever in my life. It's just a little thing I've noticed, in and of myself about me, that it was like that. I don't know if you've heard the Brad Paisley song. He talks about if I could write a letter to me back, now, back when I was the age of 17. And then the first thing I would do is prove to him, to myself, that I am his future self, because I would tell him certain things that only he would know. And that's what my higher self Arya did with this little thing that she did a charade for, that she didn't even say it out loud, that I clicked later and knew what she meant. It was absolute 100% proof, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that, we're talking to the real deal here. We're not making this up, because sometimes we wonder, did I just make this up in my mind? And so that was really key. And that's why I'm telling you about this now, because so you know where I'm coming from in this. And then as we continue to start to work together in the days and weeks that went forward from there, with this style of asking questions, and the way we usually do it is where I'm the one that really stays the most conscious. I'm acting like I'm in the role of the questioner to kind of help things anchor in the physical presence, because when Lisa gets really into it, she is just, taking the information, saying what she hears, and like at the end of the session, she doesn't even remember hardly anything that she said. Sometimes I will have moments where all of a sudden it starts coming through me, and I'll say some things, but that hasn't been as often. But when I have, it's been just as profound as the things that she's getting. So we both are accessing higher selves. One thing we have noticed, that when she has questions that are really about her personal journey, that it's harder for her to trust that information that comes through. And so it's one reason why, in her past anyway, she really hadn't, she hadn't felt like she had the best success in just talking to her higher self about her own things. It was, great information comes through for others. And I would kind of say the same thing for me. So we have noticed that when we work together this way, stuff, she'll be able to bring in things, for me, from my higher self or hers, and then I kind of do the vice versa for her. So, but also if I'm with her and I'm kind of anchoring the presence, then she can kind of go into it more and does receive things for herself as well. So, as I go in and begin like recording and then posting some information of the things that we've received, I think I'm going to start with kind of this question. I'll kind of go chronologically too. And one of the earliest things that I channeled, and this was one I just did by myself, was a question about really who we are and why we're here, especially on the the twin flame journey. And then I will say after that, though, the overall, even though we will definitely reference at times the aspect of light workers' role as twin flames, I also feel like, and I think all of you are probably with me on this, that we're really coming to a point where, first of all, union is absolutely inevitable. It is something that as the light continues to increase, and I'll get into this more later, as the light increases on this planet, that will happen at some point or another. It's still always a choice, but what happens is that we are broken down further and further and further down into our absolute truth. All of the stuff that's not true, just keeps dropping away. And if you really get down to the truth of who you really are at your core, then like you have the choice, but like what other choice would you make? And so, as the Divine Feminine, we're leading the way. We've already made our choice. We've known for a long time who this person is and why it matters. And, just waiting for the masculine to catch up to that in a sense. But one thing we have been shown is they're way farther along in it than we realize, and that they're, the reasons are anchoring, the separation, if you're still in separation, or they're anchoring where they're at. There's a reason for that. So I'll get into that as well. But also what I wanted to say is that I will be, and this is for both Lisa and I, we feel like our message and things that we have to say applies to everyone who is, awakened, which is pretty much at this point still mostly, Starseeds, Lightworkers who volunteered to come here. The masses of people mostly haven't woken up yet, but they will soon. And regardless of who you are and your, kind of the nuances of your mission, we have things that will be relevant for everyone. So we're going to be not focusing a whole lot on the twin flame thing. So if you have friends and other people who are, really, they know that they're part of this whole shift that's taking place, that they're way showers, they're helping break the trail, you can share these videos to them, because we won't be, going into that a whole lot. And also, no, I think that was all I was going to say. So again, the video went longer than I meant, but there's that. And I will be posting up some other things hopefully today. And again, recordings where you'll just hear my voice, because it's much easier to read and not be like on video while I'm reading. So that's how I'll post that up. And thanks again for watching. Oh, final thing, and a lot of people are asking about the app. I will talk about it more later probably, and also do some readings and stuff, some sample readings for you guys using that method. The app will probably be done about mid-January. So, when we get closer, when we actually have kind of like the prototype ready, I'll start showing you some things like that. But it is pretty cool. And that's all for now. So thanks. Bye.